These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations.
Man has had a fascination with space for quite a while, and the space industry has come a long way since we first sent Apollo 11 to the moon. Now we can look back at these past missions and see what makes up a successful space industry. Some of the criteria I think is important for a successful space industry is to have a strong commitment to the missions, the willingness to go beyond what we already know, and the ability to be flexible with the way we operate. I will go more in depth about these criteria. However, I would first like to talk about how both the private and government works in the space industry has been a success in real life, and how the relationship between the private industry and the government is shown on the big screen. The missions I decided to talk about in this evaluation is the Apollo 11 mission, the International Space Shuttle, and the Virgin Galactic program. The Apollo 11 mission is well known as the first successful space mission that got man on the moon. I feel that this mission's success paved the way to different, much more complex missions. This mission also led to scientists to think beyond just sending man to the moon. The International Space Shuttle allows the crew members who come from different countries, to live on the shuttle for a few months at a time. This government mission is just one of the many missions set out to see if living in space could become a reality for us. The Virgin Galactic program is set on helping to send tourists to the moon, a goal that they hope they will reach by the end of the year 2014. This program shows how the private industries are able to work with the government agencies in order to achieve their goal. However, before I go into how these missions fit my criteria, I will be talking about the relationship between the government and the private firms, mainly from the movies. In class, we have already watched Iron Man and Iron Man 2, both movies that show how the relationship between the private and the government has always been a bit rough no matter what industry we are talking about. Just in case you don't know what Iron Man is, let's just take a look at the hero. These two movies showed us the relationship in terms of military weapons, and just by watching the movies, our class was able to come up with different interpretations of the relationship. However, for the purpose of this paper, I would like to focus primarily on the effects of the private industries and the government working together, or lack of in some cases. I will also talk about how Tony Stark came up with the Iron Man suit, something that was considered impossible but still managed to be done. The last theme I would like to focus on is Tony Stark's vision of how his company should operate after his experience in Afghanistan, and how his vision only became stronger the more we watched the movie. The first mission I will talk about is the Apollo 11 mission. Here we have a short clip of the day man touched moon.
9 or 8. Plus, correction, 00572. Perigee, plus 00085.
The Apollo mission is a great example of the first criterion because of how long this mission lasted. Before Apollo 11's success, there were also 10 failures, making this job very frustrating, especially after the Apollo 1 accident where 3 astronauts were killed, marking the first fatality in America's space program. This resiliency also exemplifies the third criterion to be flexible, as each Apollo model had to be adjusted according to the problems they came across. The scientist was rewarded in 1969 when the Apollo 11 landed on the moon. This mission was by no means an easy one nor a short one. However, because of the scientists deciding to continue working on this project, it was made possible. The second criterion was the willingness to go beyond what we already know. The Apollo missions was an obvious example for this criterion. Being that the Apollo 11 was the first to successfully land on the moon, our knowledge of space and space travel was very limited. Even if we look at the first space mission, which turned out to be a failure, we can see how the scientists behind these missions are pushing the limits to what we know. The next mission I will evaluate is the International Space Shuttle. This mission has a long history and is still in session.
So this is looking out the port side of the space station, and we're actually also on the front side, so front port side of the space station.
It is actually amazing to see how committed the people are to see how this mission will turn out. This mission also shows the second criterion. This idea of living in space was only an idea, however, now we can see that it is slowly becoming a reality. Although these astronauts are only in space for months at a time, it is a big step for us towards the goal of living in space indefinitely. However, I believe that this mission best exemplified the third criteria of being flexible. The history behind the shuttle has been quite an interesting read, since the shuttle originally was a Russian and American project. However, as times changed and the USSR dissolved, the purpose behind the shuttle changed as well. Originally only intended to be used as a laboratory and observatory, it soon expanded to provide transportation and maintenance for future missions, as well as serving commercial, diplomatic, and educational purposes. The people on this current mission must be flexible and open to change, since we are dealing with people that come from different countries, and as we overcome many obstacles we have yet to know. The next mission I will discuss is the Virgin Galactic, who put out an ad for their program.
This is Jesse McKinley reporting for the New York Times from Albany, New York. A few years ago, the United States passed the torch of manned space flight.
As it was stated, the Virgin Galactic is working on sending tourists to space. I believe that this program meets all three criteria quite easily. Like the previous missions we've evaluated, I feel that the scientists are quite engaged with their project and well committed to them. Seeing how far the company has gone is actually quite astounding, and being so close to their goal also helps to push the workers even more to reach their goal. Also, the fact that this project is introducing this new idea of allowing tourists to travel to space requires of scientists and engineers to be flexible, as they create a space shuttle to fit the needs of their passengers. This new idea also meets the second criterion, since this project is pushing past what we already know, doing something for the regular civilians. Overall, I feel that both the private and government was able to meet the criteria I set up for a successful space industry. However, I did come to the conclusion that there were some criteria that were better applicable for the government and some that were better suited for the private industries. However, from what we can see in the Virgin Galactic program, the private industries are finally able to work with the government, and both are achieving amazing results while meeting the criteria.